please send your queries to creativesonoma at sonoma-county.org, and we'll follow up with an email with all of that is listed on the website and all of the materials. And Bernadette should be able to answer many of your questions. If not, I'll be available to make an appointment with you to discuss if you have deeper questions about content or application. Bernadette and I will be working together to solve all of those. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen at this point and walk you through basically what we're going to do today is go through the process of how to apply, what the guidelines are, some changes I'd really like to point out for this year's grants, which are probably the most significant changes we've made in a while, and a little bit of reason why for that. So once you get to our website, you want to point to our grant programs and then go to Arts Impact Grants for Organizations. You'll see the deadline is listed right there at the top, and click here. Our application did open today, so you'll be able to get in there and play around once this webinar is over. For these grants, the biggest change is that these are for general operating support. So you do not need to identify a program or a specific part of your season or any specific type of support other than the work that you do and applying that to your work. So you'll see that there's a change in the application basically describing your organization and what you do. It's mainly being reviewed for artistic merit and excellence, and then additional points for just having certain things present in your application. So it's a little easier for the review process, a little more equitable for everybody else, that we can try to distribute funds fairly and quickly this year. The other major change is that the grant amount is $4,000. We've had grants over the years since inception in 2015 ranging up to 20,000. We actually had one with us 40,000 at one point, but with decreasing funding, both from the National Endowment for the Arts and the county, we have gone towards these 4,000 each grants. That also eliminates you applying for $10,000 and only being awarded $3,000 and having to scramble to see if you could do something with that $3,000 that is meaningful. So that takes that away. We've already had some questions about this, saying, can it fund this project? Yes, it's general operating funds, so you can just apply it to your general budget, unrestricted. This is just in support of the work that you do. So I'm happy to answer any questions. You just put them in your chat. I do have that open, or Bernadette will pipe up and let me know to ask, if you have any specific questions about that change. And the good thing is that we have up to 45. We have the budget. We have $180,000 to distribute. So up to 45 grants of $4,000 each will be awarded. So if you apply for it, you get $4,000. No scaling of up or down of grants. And each year we've had 48 applicants. So we've only been, which has cut out 11 to 12 each year that we weren't able to fund. So hopefully we'll be able to fund more of the folks that apply. So please let us know if you have any questions about that. Once again, it's talking about making sure we get money out to the community to support these organizations, all of your organizations. There's so much great work. And so it was a decision about how the government can get this money into further avenues of the community. And that's a large part of why that change was made. So if you want to discuss that or have any questions, please email creativesonoma@sonomacounty.org, and I'm happy to discuss that. These were called the Arts Impact Grants, and we initially created that so that we could say whether or not your organization has countywide impact, neighborhood impact, or youth impact, so that we can compare each organization. So for now, that doesn't really add anything to your score. It's for us to look at the organizations that say they have countywide impact and be able to collect all your data, because that's a little bit of a focus at this point, to be able to show the impact for the California Arts Council of the Arts and the National Endowment for the Arts, so we can keep that funding coming to us. And so neighborhood impact, we can look at all of the great community-based organizations that might be just doing work in a local area. And so you're also not competing as much with the larger organizations that have more staff or more professional staff. Some of our smaller neighborhood impact organizations only have volunteer staff. So making sure that the opportunity is there for both types of organizations. And then any organization that your work is almost all youth impact, then you would want to apply as youth impact. And that's another area. If you have questions, please let us know, and we can make sure you know which one you're checking and which one helps us the most and helps you the most in making your application look good. And then as ever, and this is partly because of the application we made to the National Endowment for the Arts, they do have a focus on environmental sustainability. That's one of the areas that they asked for focus on. And so with the climate change challenges in Sonoma County, we definitely encourage those that are utilizing the arts to advance awareness about any kind of sustainability or ecological themes or ideas are utilizing the arts to advance those ideas. So if you are checking that box on the application, make sure you describe it well. This doesn't, I wouldn't check it if you are just saying we use a lot of green, or a green organization. So we do a lot of recycling or our products. It's really about an artistic program or policy where you are you're doing community awareness through the arts. And so a new work that's focused on sustainability ideas. Those are the kind of things, not how you operate. All right. Important dates. Today, the application did open, and we'll be putting a recording of this webinar after today on the website. And so you can check back on that if you need to ask more questions or look at some of the things we talked through in the application. The deadline is Tuesday, October 1st at midnight, by midnight. If you miss the 11:59 p.m., it will be closed, and unfortunately, so please make sure you apply early. We check all of, Bernadette and I will be doing the review of all the applications to make sure that you meet the eligibility requirements, and then also doing some preliminary scoring, which I'll talk about in the application itself as we go through the application packet. And then panel review will occur during October, and at the very latest, we should be able to notify you about this award in November 2024. And this is for January 1st through December 31st. That's a 12-month funding period. And then here's the other big change, well, somewhat big change. A final survey. Instead of a final report, we're just going to be asking about certain things that you accomplished during the year. And so there will not be much narrative, if at all, because for $4,000, we want to keep it simple for you and make sure that the money is just supporting you in a way that feels good and doesn't feel burdensome. So I'm going to keep trying that. Eligibility. Any Sonoma County nonprofit arts and cultural organizations, so that does include history museums, and then culturally specific nonprofit organizations. So those are organizations like La Luz, Corazon, that are focused on a specific culture that are not necessarily arts focused, but do have arts programs. And so those are the two types of organizations. We cannot fund with a fiscal sponsor at this point because this has National Endowment for the Arts funding. So we can't do a subcontract to a subcontract. We can only subcontract once. And so that's that there. If you have applied, not received a grant from us before, we do need proof of current registration in the California Registry of Charitable Trusts. We can go over that in the application. You have to be a California nonprofit, either headquartered or with a physical location in Sonoma County. Minimum of 3-year history of consistent arts and culture programming prior to the application deadline. So even if you're a nonprofit, you only became a nonprofit recently within the past year or 2 or 3, but we're doing the same types of programming before then that would be fine, as long as we know that you've been doing the work you're doing for 3 years. And then 2025, this is this year, this coming cycle, we ask you to, certain things with the government, like Rehabilitation Act. We might even have to get into historic preservation questions. So if you want to make a capital improvement and it's a historical building, we'll be asking those kind of questions. That's after the fact. If you get a grant from us, there'll be certain reviews that we have to do, American with Disabilities Act, during the process. Other organizations, I touched on the fiscal sponsor. Those with fiscal sponsor do not qualify, but County of Sonoma's foundations that are part of County of Sonoma, school-related foundations, so support foundation for any school system or district or school site, and then any municipalities we cannot fund with this money. I'll pause. I don't see anything in the chat, or raise hands, so I'll just keep going until one of you or Bernadette stops me. Okay, the evaluation criteria has almost also changed a bit this year. Artistic excellence and creative impact is going to be one of the larger items. This is also required because of the funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. And so any arts grants that are funded by the NEA have this requirement. So they have to have artistic excellence. And then there are 3 things that I'll go over in the application and show you, the 3 things that we're going to be looking at. As staff, you're gonna get an additional point for organizational readiness. That means you have a SAM number with a federal ID, which is not required, but highly encouraged, and you get more points, a point for it. Equitable access and participation. I'll show you the part in the application that shows. That means that you either are an organization with a mission that intentionally serves those a certain underserved population, or you have a program that is specifically addressing the needs of an underserved population. And then the environmental sustainability, as I talked about above, if you have that in your application, you get another point. So once again, the main one is artistic excellence, and then additional points that is just a yes, no. They're present in your application that will be done by staff.
Sam,
sure.
we have one question.
Yeah.
Somebody's asking, what if you're a nonprofit 501c3 school?
If it is an art school, we would have to discuss it. But for the most part, this is not considered a school grant. Schools, school districts, parent-t organizations, so they would be excluded from this grant particularly.
Okay.
And so if you want to have a further discussion, I'm happy to have that. Just let me know the organization and we can do an assessment.
Thank you. There's a couple more questions. Is the California registration document a PDF? Is this the same as our California tax exemption letter?
No, it is different. We want to make sure that organizations that are getting funding from us, and this is are registered with the California Charitable Trust, just to make sure that that's actually required for you to be receiving money as a nonprofit entity in California. And so that is for new organizations. If you've gotten money from us in the past, it's not required. So it's mainly us making sure that you're fully registered and functioning nonprofit in California for those that we're funding for the first time. And
go ahead.
Go ahead.
There's one more. Is there an upload for organization 2025 budget, or is it just the most recently completed fiscal year numbers?
It's just the most recently completed fiscal year numbers. We're not asking for budget materials at all. And we're also took out the budget for your organization. We don't need to see an operating budget. We just want to know what you do and how you do it.
And one more.
Mhm.
What details do we need to provide about how the money was used? Receipts, question mark?
No, you should keep receipts for your organization in general in case that in the event that we go back with an audit, we get an audit from the National Endowment for the Arts or the County of Sonoma, but they are not required to show at the end of the year. The other major thing that we're doing, because this is a small amount of money and small compared to some of the grants we were making in the before, we want to make it more simpler. And so you won't have a final invoice, you'll get the full amount at the outset. And so our final report, we don't ask you to upload anything other than some great, pictures or something about your success or your year, however you want to show us what you did, because we need to report on that as well, which I'll touch on in the application as well. Did I answer that question well enough, I think? Yeah, we won't need to see receipts, but keep them for your own self for potential audits, which has never happened before, but you never know with various government entities. So, any other questions?
Looks like that's it for now.
Awesome, thank you. And then how to apply. This is the section where you get into the application packet. We just attached this today. And so if you just click on that, I have the thing open, and this is basically what I went through just now. And you can go through this and read a little bit more about these things I'm telling you. All of the things that are required. It's mostly on the website there. A little bit more information. It gets a little more in depth about what they cannot be used for, but these are just for, since they're for general operating support, we're not asking about this kind of work. So it's fine to just tell us about yourself. These are the more in depth on the evaluation criteria. And then a little bit more information about applying. It gives you a little bit more information about what's required for uploads. And then the final survey. The final survey will, like I said, you won't need to do a lot of narratives. We're not going to ask for uploads, except we want to see your fabulous work. So photographs, programs, posters, videos, that kind of thing that we just love to see, and we are required to show at some level to our the folks from whom we're receiving grant funding for these programs. And so that will be a simple survey, and I'll show you in the application the exact items that we'll be asking, and our statement of non-discrimination. And then the rest of this document goes into the application help tool. So this is everything that you'll see in the application. So I'm going to switch over now. I'm going to go back to here. So you want to click to submit when you want to get started with an application. You can start it now and save a draft up until when you're finished. And so when you're ready to submit, you just click here and then save your work as you go. Here's our application. It's the only thing that's open right now from Creative Sonoma. Click apply. And this is a fairly new feature of Submittable. So there's a way to create an organizational profile. And so there's some good information here. If you want to learn about having an organization, you can search through your organization's nonprofit number or your unique entity ID that you get through SAM, or your a social security number or something like that. And so, or you can search for your organization. For today, I'm going to skip and continue. We don't require this, but you may want to start doing that. It might be a way to help manage when you have turnover from other employees. We've had that happen where someone is running the grant program and then they have to get the owner changed from the person that has applied for a grant in a previous year once they leave, so that you can continue to have access to your application and all the fun stuff that goes along with it inside. So when you start your application, the first thing you're going to see is eligibility. Eligibility. Um, so as I was describing, we call arts and culture nonprofits are 51% or more of your programming is arts or culture focused, or 501c3 specific, culturally specific nonprofit serving grounded in serving BIPOC communities. If you say not a 501c3 nonprofit or not one of these things, you will receive a message that you're not eligible for this grant program. This is the next question. Due to funding from the NEA, can you say that your organization is accessible and those kind of things? Yes or no? And does your organization have a minimum 3-year history? Yes or no? And so we're going to say yes, yes, and yes. So we can say next, and there we go into the actual application. Are there any questions, Bernadette, at this time? I don't see anything.
There are no questions at this time.
Okay. So I am going to just jump into a review of the application. And we'll just do it line by line. The organization name. So if you have a DBA, please list your legal organization name and the name by which you are most commonly referred to or doing business as. Your physical address, and this must be a Sonoma County address. So we have a few organizations that we have funded that have multiple locations throughout the Bay Area, but they have a Sonoma County physical location. Make sure that this is the physical location in Sonoma County if you're applying for an organization that has multiple sites. And then a mailing address if this is different from the physical address, and that is exactly in that instance, or if you have a PO box, please put that in this spot. We must have an organization website. It's great if you have a website. I know some of our smaller organizations may not, so if you have a Facebook page that serves as your website, that's okay. Once you receive a grant, we ask that everybody puts up a profile on our website. So a lot of you that have been funded before probably have an organization profile page. And even if you don't, please put one up, because we use this all the time to send people to you. We get calls at Creative Sonoma from journalists, from other government folks asking what's going on in my area. So all kinds of questions. And so it's the first place we look when we're providing information to the community. Your executive director or CEO, name, email address, and daytime phone number. And then we do have a way to set our the email address that's used in the original registration for submittable account will automatically be sent this communications through submittable. So if you want other folks like your executive director or someone else, you can click other and it will say, please list their name, title, and email address, or other instructions about contacting your team or your team of folks who need to be kept apprised about grants. And then we get into, this is the only time we ask for financial information. Year-end date total revenues and total expenses for the organization's most recently completed fiscal year. And so if you're a calendar year or July to June, so just put the end of whatever your most recently completed year is, your total revenues, your total expenses, so we could see your actuals. One thing that we stopped asking is if you have a deficit, why? We just want to see where your standing is as compared to other organizations that are applying. That helps us. We're economic development. We get to get excited about finding out the size and budgets of our organizations and your need. So then wherever your address that you put in number 2, your physical address of the location, your main location, that is the number 11, the supervisory district in which your organization. So pick out your supervisory district where you're located, And then if there are a number of organizations that have applied annually that take the show on the road, literally, or they have multiple locations in Sonoma County where they do actual programming. So this isn't about your audiences. So where will your project occur? If it's the main one that you listed in number 11, it's just, that's great. But if you actually have multiple sites where you take your work, please just let us know in this field.
Sam, we have a couple questions related to location.
Okay.
One, Spring is asking, we're currently working without a facility. Is a PO box okay?
That should be okay as long as we know that it's a Sonoma. We do need a supervisor district. So that's the main thing. We just want to make sure that you're based in Sonoma County.
Okay.
Mhm.
Another question, our mailing address is a PO box in Marin County. Staff work remotely from Berkeley and San Jose. We don't have a physical office, but nearly all of our programming is in Sonoma, including at the Grinstead Amphitheater and at the community center.
Okay, then you should check. Did I put outside? I didn't. Do choose for Sonoma County Supervisor District. Use the main site where most of your programming in Sonoma County occurs. And then any other areas where your programming occurs in Sonoma County.
And then there's one more question related to the California registry. Will they have time to register? Will there be time to register before?
Should be, yeah. Yeah, it's basically a worksheet that you submit to the registry.
Okay, that's it for now.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question is, had your organization received Creative Sonoma funding in the past? This is for us and also our reviewers. This is something that we find that our reviewers are curious about. Are you new? So if you're a new grantee, put that in there. So we have the last 2 years of this grant, and then we also had a few professional development partner contracts last year. So that was a program we presented. If you've received a contract for that, or if you've gotten other grants from us, but in an earlier time, just click other earlier grants. If you have not, if you click no, we have not received, you will have 3 uploads. This is your nonprofit organization IRS tax exempt letter, your organizational bylaws, and this Registry of Charitable Trust Form RRF-1, just to show that you are up to date on being a registered and functional organization in the state of California. That's the main thing. Excuse me, I'm going to take a drink of water. So let us know. Bernadette was great last year helping folks for this, and so if you have any questions, you can ask her, and if she can't, she'll come to me. So let us know if you have any questions about that. Also, I know some organizations had applied with a fiscal sponsor before. If you've become a nonprofit since then, we need this new information. Since you weren't technically our grantee, your fiscal sponsor was. And so that's one question that came up last year that I just wanted to reiterate. And then SAM numbers. This is the new thing that came out from the government instead of DUNS numbers a few years ago. And so you can register for a unique entity ID number. And so any of you that receive a grant, we will pull a list of those that are being directly funded by the National Endowment for the Art portion of the money, and the money that we match. And all of those folks have to have SAM numbers. So I would say 2/3 of our grantees are going to need to have SAM numbers. So that's why we say it's required, but not required to pursue. But if you don't have it, please write not applicable. We know some of our smaller organizations may not have the staff capacity to get all the paperwork in time, not applicable. You get an additional point for having a SAM number. So that may be the cutoff point between the organizations. If we get to the point where we have more than 45 applicants, that may be the cutoff. between an organization that gets funding and one that doesn't is it's going to go to the one with the SAM number. So while we say it's not required, we'd love for you to try to get one if you can. It's just good to have. And let us know. I know once again, Bernadette was amazing last year, helping a lot of folks through that. And I think almost everybody did end up getting their SAM number. So we'll thank Bernadette for all the help she's provided everyone too. That's it for the main information, the background of your organization. And then we'll go into what we're requiring for your organization, describing who you are and what you do. So pretty basic stuff at the top. What year was the organization established? And that could be, you could put in both if it's, you know, established in 1998, became nonprofit 2001. Whatever you'd like to put there is fine. Your mission and vision statements, if you have them. And if you don't, please write in that you do not. And this is another question. Does your organization intentionally serve any of the following populations, either as integrated in your organizational mission? And so that might be Alchemia, who deals with folks with cognitive disabilities or physical disabilities, or through your programs or services. So there's a number of programs of arts organizations in the area that are potentially, I know one program at the Sonoma Community Center focuses on LGBTQ queens, queens, that was funny, LGBTQ teens. And they, so that they could check that box there. If anybody has any questions about that, let me know. So that's one thing that you get a point for if you have it. It's just a yes or no. 1 point, yes. So if you describe any other specific underserved population, please describe it here. And then we want to make sure that you talk about this in your description of your programming down below. So we'll be watching for that. I'll tell you more on that in a second. Does your organization have primarily countywide neighborhood or youth impact? And so we've changed how we describe this just a little bit from prior years, just hopefully to clarify. And if we haven't, please let us know. We'll keep working on it. Countywide, that means you have a multi-generational or adult audiences that and your participants are generally drawn from multiple Sonoma County communities or the entire county. Neighborhood is that multi-generational or adult audiences are from one local area, such as a neighborhood or town. And then youth impact audiences and participants are primarily youth themselves and young adults ages 24 and younger. So that's Art Star, the Children's Museum of Sonoma County, those kind of organizations. If anyone has any questions about this, this is mainly for us to group you as organizations and collect data. So we know what kind of impact and reach our organizations have. So it's not something that really goes into how we assess or rate your application. It's just informational and kind of gives us a nice overview of what's happening in the county. So that's the top part. And then here's our narrative. We're asking what you're doing this year. So January 1st through December 2024. What's taking place at your organization? So if for a theater company, you might say, well, we finished out our 50th fiscal year 23-24 theater season with X many productions that focused on this type of theme. And then in the new beginning of the season, we have this type of shows coming, that kind of thing. So we're really looking at your artistic goals and how audience and participants are involved. So youth are being trained in theater craft. Your ceramic studio has just been so in demand, you've had to add programming, that kind of thing. So we're looking at the artistic goals and how people are participating with you, whether they're audiences coming to see a show, people coming to take a class, that type of thing. So just a little bit about that. That's up to 500 words. Does your programming for 2025 address environmental themes? And so that this is where you say yes or no. And then in 21, this is the main narrative about what your plans are for the coming year. So up to 750 words about what you're planning to do next year artistically, or the programs that, if you're an organization that is not focused on the arts, what are the artistic programs, arts and culture programs that you're planning? And then again, highlight artistic goals, because this is where our reviewers are going to be looking mainly at the artistic merit. And they'll be looking at this question, number 19, and then your portfolio that you upload. Anybody have any questions about, this is different than previous years, because once again, we're not asking you to say, oh, this is for this part of our season. We are just asking about what you do as an organization, what your plans are, as just general operating support that you're going to get for this. So let me know, Bernadette, if anybody has questions about that.
No questions so far.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And then once again, here in the application, if you checked any, make sure that if you said, you know, I deal with geographically isolated folks and folks with disabilities, make sure you describe how you're addressing that in this upcoming year programs, as well as any environment themed program or project. Because that's one thing that we've noticed from previous years, people check, yes, it is environmental, and then don't really touch on it in their narrative. We don't want to add another whole box. We're trying to keep it as small and as simple as possible, but enough information that the people that are reviewing it see that and understand what you're headed for and trying to describe.
One question, Sam. Can you please give an example of an artistic goal?
Sure. It would say we want to produce 7 plays this year. That could be your goal. Whatever your organization is producing or services you're providing. So your artistic goal could be, we will engage 30 new students in our dance school this year, or increase our class size, and the students will learn more about a new type of dance that they haven't explored before. So it's more about really focusing on what is the arts focus of your organization. So for theater, it's about your theater season. Museum, it's about your upcoming exhibits. It might be about how folks are going to experience that. So it's an interactive event, and we'll have this kind of participation, or we're just hoping that, you know, we get a certain audience size, because that's something we are going to be asking about later. So we're not going to be tracking that, but we just want to know what you're doing for the coming year artistically or culturally. I hope that answers it and it's not too vague. Please let me know if it's too vague. We just want to know about what you're doing. Any other questions for that?
There was one comment here. Questions do not seem to be acknowledged going into a hole in the environment. So I'm not sure.
As far as the question for the program,
I'm gonna ask Abby to talk, because we are answering the questions that are coming through, and I'm not sure where the disconnect is. Abby, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I asked twice, if we were funded in 2022, do we qualify as a previous applicant?
Okay, so I think there's something happening here, because the questions that I can answer, I'm answering through chat. So I don't know if those are being received, because I did answer that question. And I typed it out. Do you see that, Abby?
No, but maybe I'm not using the interface correctly.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, yeah, I do see. Okay, now I see it. And then
did you click on something to see that?
yes, I had to click on something.
Okay, because that's the same there's another couple questions that came through from Jenny, and I'm hoping she was able to find my response that I typed back to her.
Thanks.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, anybody that received any previous grant from us, click other grants, and you won't have to upload the the pieces of paper we'd need for a new applicant. So that should be fine if you've been funded by us in the past. So any other questions, Bernadette? Good to go? Okay, great. Okay, so this is the final section of the application. It's demographics and uploads. And so we're asking about your projected demographics by percentage of people who will participate. So you have some age ranges. You'll notice we did youth 18 and under and youth 19 to 24. So we can hit those organizations that specifically serve those, like Art Start or your young adults. And then we want to make sure that that automatically calculates, and it should equal 100% if you've put the right percentages in there. So double check that to make sure that it equals 100. Gender, female, male, or other, race, ethnicity. And once again, I know some organizations do not or cannot collect that information, but please just give us your estimation or projected demographics for that. And then this is the fun part where you get to really show off your work. We want to see 6 separate items that support your creative and artistic excellence. This is really where our panel reviewers will rely on looking at your work. So, you know, it's an exhibition brochure. It's a video of a clip of a performance at your organization. It's a video of a class going on and what the children are learning or adults are learning. It could be an event flyer. It could be anything that you produce that can let our peer reviewers, who are not folks from Sonoma County, but are professionals in the arts world, know what you do. So I really encourage you to make sure that someone from an outsider's perspective looks at these 6 items and really understands what you do, and maybe it's something that creates excitement about what you do. And think about that when you're thinking about the peer reviewers. These are people that are arts professionals, and so what would really show you off and your work off to those people looking at these applications. Just on the technical side, make sure each file has a descriptive title. Don't upload it as the little, you know, the numbers that come out of your camera. Give it an actual title, because this is new in this application this year. We just want 1 or 2 sentences briefly about what each of these items are. So that really will help our peer reviewers understand the creativity, your creativity and impact of your work. Also, there's an 800 megabyte limit to all the attachments that are added to your application, and a per file upload per video is maximum 400 megabytes. So if you have a massive file, either get it compressed or give us a smaller clip. And so Bernadette is also awesome at answering those kind of questions as they come up. And so let us know if you have any questions about creative portfolio and what you would like to submit. We're happy to help on that as well.
We have one question from Jenny. She's asking to talk, so I'm going to unmute her.
Okay.
Hi, Jenny.
Can you hear me?
We can hear
Yes.
you.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you had a Microsoft Word version of the application or not. I mean, I can always use our last year's, but
Yes, we can make that available. And we can mail that out if you would like at the end. If everybody would like a copy, we can make that available. Or we can just put it on our website, I think.
because I have to go back and forth with a couple of people to look at our answers, and so it's just helpful.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And then I have been talking and touching on this throughout the past 45 minutes. Instead of a final report that has a lot of narrative, we are going to ask that you complete a final survey in January 2026. And so we have to report to both California Arts Council, from whom we receive general operating support, and then the National Endowment for the Arts for this particular grant. We have $30,000 from them for this grant this year, for this cycle. So we have to report to them on what was produced as a result of our grants. And since these grants are general operating support, we're going to be asking those that get funded, what'd you do in the period of January through December of 2025? And so we just ask you to say this is required to check off that you'll provide the required data at the close of the funding period. This is we don't need exact numbers, but we need a really good sense of what was produced. So items on the survey will include and will not apply to every grantee. So number of professional artworks created. And so that doesn't include youth art unless they're professionals. I know some kids are professionals, but number of fairs or festivals held. And so this is not, as you'll see, this is not going to it's not going to apply to every single grantee, because you're all different types of organizations, but we'll just need number of concerts or performances or readings, number of arts instruction activities, number of artists, and number of staff compensated. So how many of artists and staff do you compensate during the year? Once again, this is not about the $4,000. It's just about who you are as an organization, and then your participation numbers. And I know that's huge to track, but I'd say almost all funding right now is asking for participation numbers. So hopefully you'll be able to say, oh, okay, we know how many people attended each of our shows, and we know that we had this many youth at our youth theater shows and this many people that are adults, or we had this many museum visitors that were mainly adults. As long as we're getting a decent idea of, it doesn't have to be specific. Obviously it can be somewhat an estimation at the end, but we do need to know these kind of numbers. So that's what's going to be on the final report. And hopefully it will be simple and fast to do. And no more narratives. And once again, you'll get the whole $4,000 at the outset. So you won't have to submit a final invoice for the additional 10% as we have done in the past. But if you do not fill out the survey, it will impact your ability to get funding from us in the future, because we absolutely need this data to provide to the folks that are funding us. And let us know if you have any questions. Once again, please email if you have a question. And then at the end, it just says check, it doesn't matter. You could check all 5 and or you have to check at least one thing to be able to go forward. So everybody, that applies, so all of you that have received grant funding from us in the past, that would check all applicants. You got 6 items in your upload in 23, your participant demographics are completed. That is one thing I'd like to point out to everyone. You could fill this out and forget. As long as you put something in this field, it's going to think that you've completed this field. So I would just go over it one more time to make sure that you fully completed it, because you could fill out part of it and it could think that you're done, and it's not going to say, hey, you forgot a field. It's just going to consider that you've done it. So that's why we add a reminder for this. And then for Creative Portfolio, you can't add more than 6 files, but you could add 1. And so just before you, and it would think that you're done adding files, there's no way for us to require a minimum of files. So just make sure you have all 6 of your Creative Portfolio items uploaded. So that's why we put that there. And then those of you that have never received grant funding from us before, you'll have to have those items that you've uploaded earlier in the items at the top of the page. I think those are the wrong numbers from a previous application, but I'll double check that. And then in terms of use, just say that you've looked at everything and you're agreeing to furnish the services as specified, which is doing the amazing work you do, and just hit agree, and you could save a draft at this point. You could save a draft at any point. The nice thing, a few years ago, they didn't automatically save drafts in Submittable, but now they do. So we do have save draft, but I'm always a crazy save draft, save person. So make sure you save it. And then once you're ready to submit it, hit apply, as long as you do that before the deadline, so 11:59 p.m. Eastern time, Western Pacific time on October 1st. We'll get your application. And then once we get the applications, we will have a few days that Bernadette and I will go through and make sure that everything is complete and clear. And if we find something, there's a technical issue, like one of your portfolio items isn't opening, or you have a video that's not playing, we will be in touch with you to make sure that that is working. And if we need to resolve anything like that, we will do that with you. And so we would reopen the application and give you, usually it's 48 hours to fix it before we send it on to our reviewers. I think I will ask for any more questions before I close this screen. Otherwise, I'm going to stop my screen sharing and go
Yes,
back.
there are a few more that came in.
Great.
One is, how should arts instruction activities be quantified? The number of classrooms, schools, school or classroom visits?
Yeah. This is literally, when we look at this information, items on the survey will include, this actually comes directly from the NEA. So number of arts instruction activities, that's all we need. So if you've done 12 teaching artist residencies and 18 classes, put 30. It's really pretty general. It doesn't have to be very specific. This literally comes directly from what we report to the NEA. And so this is what we'll be asking you. There is a little bit more of description of what those things are, like fairs or festivals. I think they ask, there's some sort of, there's a little deeper distinction of what qualifies as fairs and festivals. But other than that, it's really going to be like Green Music Center had 36 concerts and that's it. Or you had 150 performances of 8 shows. Arts instruction activities, 7 children's camps. It's pretty basic. That's what we're looking for.
Thank you. And a question from Sarah. We are a community chorus with a focus on environmental issues. Does the question about demographics refer to our membership or our audience?
That is audience. And let me see if we've made clear. Participant. I know that's not very clear, is it? Let's do everything. Who's participating with you? Could be, yeah, I would say who's taking classes from you, who is performing. So let's go ahead and say however you want to slice and dice that. Unfortunately, that wasn't very clear, so that's our bad. Yeah, usually participants is not as much audiences, it's who is participating in your programs, either learning something or performing something or creating something. Oh, I might try to add some clarification on that question. So.
Okay. And then a question from Meg. She was specifically asking about this focus on the Arts Impact Grant towards General Operating Fund. Is that going to be how this grant is operated moving forward for upcoming cycles?
Most likely, because we've been asked by the county to be more of a distributor of funds rather than making qualification, taking out as many variables as possible when we're reviewing things to make sure it's as open and fair and as transparent as possible. So to get to that, it is more likely to be general operating funds going forward. Any other questions?
Bryce did have a question. I did answer it in chat. I'm not sure if you saw my answer, Bryce, because I think some people are seeing the answers and others aren't. So I'm just going to ask his question aloud. If I were a site advocate in your Arts Surround program, are we considered a group who has received funding in the past?
Yes, you could put that in there. You can put
Oh,
that.
doesn't that?
Oh, no, because those were grants to individuals. I'm sorry. So if it's the organization itself, the arts organization would have to be the grantee in the past.
Thank you. Looks like a couple more questions came
Sure.
in. Okay, no, he saw that. Okay, I think we're all caught up on questions.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing then and go back to our main screen. Any other questions? I can see if you have raised hands, I think, at this point. So what we'll do at the end of this is Bernadette will upload this to our YouTube channel, and we will post the link up to this webinar on our website. And once again, the best, if you want to put into the chat, Bernadette, the contact information for Creative Sonoma. So that's Creative Sonoma, all one word, at sonoma-county.org. If you have any questions about this, since I am not on the staff anymore, Bernadette will reach out with the questions that she can't answer. She can answer an awful lot because she's been with us for 6 years, right? So she knows a lot of the ins and outs of the program, but I'm happy to talk about content of this grant, especially since it's new, somewhat new in the way that we're asking people to write about themselves and the way that they do their work. And then, or you can call 707-565-6121, and that's the direct line to Creative Sonoma. And what else, Bernadette? Anything else you'd like to ask of the applicants?
I think that's it. I'll prepare the Word application and get that out to everybody.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if nobody has any more questions, we'll conclude the webinar, and we look forward to seeing your applications come in soon. And we'll be in touch. Thank you so much, everybody.